Okay, today we're gonna finish off this duck stew. I think I'm gonna end up doing it in the crock pot. I've never made anything in there before, but I do have one, so I want to give it a shot. I'm gonna end up cutting up these duck breasts into large sized chunks before we saute those, or really just brown them on the outside. Before we do that, I'm gonna cook up some of this bacon and then use the bacon from the fat to cook the ducks, and then we're also gonna throw the bacon back into the stew. Here I have all our vegetables chopped up. There's some onion, carrot, celery. I cut the corn off of a fresh cob. There's a half a jalapeno pepper in there and about 3 or 4 cloves of garlic. The wild rice, we're just going to toss that in the crock pot. We're just going to throw everything in there. We're going to brown the meat, throw everything in there, and see how it turns out. So hopefully it'll be good. Alrighty, so I'm going to cut up these duck breasts and get this bacon cooking. We'll be back. So I pulled my bacon out of the oven. I like to cook my bacon in the oven on a pan like this and let all the fat drip down through, and then I'll take some of that fat and pour it in this saute pan over here and cook up the duck breasts. So I think I'm going to brown them whole and then let them cool down and cut them and throw them in the crock pot with everything else. So we'll get doing that. Okay, we have our duck fat here in our pan. It's really hot, and our breasts right here. So we're just going to go ahead and toss those in and get them nice and browned off. Remember, we already put the Everglade seasoning on these, so we don't need to season them. And then I'll tilt the pan so the fat goes all around them. It's pretty high heat if we want to get the brown on them. I'm actually going to turn it up just a little bit even. We just have to watch them real close and then flip them when we think they're brown. So it's going to do that on both sides, and then we're going to pull them off, let them cool down, and then cut them up. So these have only been in there about a minute or so. I'm going to go ahead and flip them, see if they're brown. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. And I'll let the fat get around them again. And I'll wait for those to brown up on that side, and then I'll pull them off. So I just pulled these duck breasts off. They're nice and brown. They're still quite rare in the middle. You can see by how soft they are. Those are still quite rare in the middle. Just a nice brown on the outside with some high heat. I'm gonna let them sit here for a little bit, let them cool off. Any juices that come out of them while they're waiting, any blood, anything like that, I'm gonna go ahead and dump that right in the crock pot. We're gonna keep all that good flavor. And then we're gonna cut up the breasts, toss them in there, and we'll kick this thing on. Alright. Okay, I pulled the crock pot over. I put all of the vegetables in there along with the duck broth. I'm going to put 1/4 of a cup of this wild rice, about a tablespoon of that tomato paste. I'm gonna chop up, I'm gonna go with a half a sprig of that rosemary and toss that in there. I'm gonna brown off these ducks, cube those up about 1-inch cubes, and toss those in there. And once we get to that point, we'll be back. So here's our finely chopped rosemary. You want to chop that up pretty good, otherwise if you get a big piece and you bite into it, it's like biting into a piece of pine bark. We're also going to add 2 leaves of dried bay leaf and some dried thyme. So let's go ahead and do that. You don't want too much, but you want enough. And go just a little bit for some good luck. We'll toss in 2 of these bay leaves. I'm going to toss in this rosemary, and then in about a minute or 2, those ducks should be good to cut up. And we'll cut those up and toss those in here as well. So here's our duck. I'm going to start cutting it up. I already cut this one down the middle. I just wanted to show you how rare that is still inside. So now I'm gonna cut this into probably 6 pieces, and then I'll do the same with those, and all that juice from the bottom of the plate will also go in the crock pot. So now we've got almost everything in the crock pot. I'm gonna finish it off with 3 slices of the cooked bacon. Just gonna crumble that up in there. My hands are clean. I wash my hands after every time I touch raw duck to try and stay away from the salmonella bug. I'm also gonna top this off with the rest of this chicken stock, and I'm gonna give a few turns on the pepper grinder. And then I will show you what that looks like. Here's the crock pot with everything in it. It's probably about half full. It's pretty liquidy. I'm not sure how much liquid's gonna boil off, if any, while I'm doing this in the crock pot. Like I said before, I've never done this in a crock pot before. I want to mention that I did take a little nibble off of the duck breasts. I took a little nibble of each one, and they are delicious. I don't think I will be using the duck breasts in this way anymore. Probably the next time I catch ducks, I'm gonna try and get 6, make the duck broth from all 6 carcasses. I'll probably use the leg meat for some stew, and then I'll do something a little more technical with the breasts. So we'll see when that time comes what I come up with. Until then, I am going to put this crock pot on low and forget about it for probably 4 or 5 hours, and then I will come back and show you what I came up with. So here's our stew. I let it go for quite a long time. I think I put it in at around 2, and I think it's almost 8 now. So about 6 hours. It probably didn't need that long, honestly, but I wanted to make sure that wild rice was cooked, and just to make sure everything came together. It's the first time I've used this, as I mentioned before, several times. So now I'm going to give it a quick taste, and I know it's going to need salt because I purposely didn't put any in there because I didn't know how concentrated it was going to be. But with the lid on there, none of the steam really escaped, so it didn't really concentrate too much. So I probably would have been safe throwing some salt in there, but I always like to do that at the end anyway. So first, I'm going to give it a quick taste. Just some of the broth, just to get an idea for the seasoning. Oh my God, that's good. But it does need salt. So I'm gonna add some salt. I'm gonna do that off camera. I'm just gonna make sure that it tastes really good. Just add little bits at a time until it gets the salt profile you want. Just be sure not to over salt, because you can always add more, you can never take it back out. So that's going to be it. The duck broth, the duck stew, absolutely fantastic, completely delicious. And I will be making something else very soon. I don't know what it's going to be. I want to do a lot of more hunts. I want to do turkey, I want to do doves, I want to do hogs and deer. I also want to do some videos on some fish, maybe some snook, some redfish, something like that. So when I catch something else, we'll start making more videos. All right. Hope you guys learned something. Hope that you make this and it comes out well. All right. Bye. Just to give you an idea of how much soup actually came out of that, here it is before I cool it down in the fridge. It's about 2 quarts. I put them in these Ziploc twist and lock soup things. They're supposedly okay for the freezer, which is what I'm gonna do with one of these. Sorry, that glare. Yeah, so there we go.